now time to break down the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, they made some really good draft decisions with CeeDee Lamb. That's about it. That's the only one I could really speak to because that's the only noticeable one, and that's where the Dallas Cowboys are blowing up over. Not to mention Dak Prescott's whole contract issue, but nonetheless, they're a slew of fantasy talent. I mean, you got Dak, you got Zeke, you got Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb as a rookie, and then at tight end you have Blake Jarwin. But let's break down Dak Prescott's game for a second. He finished second in PPR last year. We've talked about him in our QB rankings, so there's not much else. If you want to go check out that video, it's on our YouTube, it's in our podcast, so make sure you check that out. But Dak Prescott is an animal. He's a dual threat. He can run, he can throw, he has a cannon. He can make those short passes, and he has the players to give him even more of a boost of fantasy value. So let's play a little game, Norris, of would you rather? Dak Prescott or the infamous Drew Brees?
Oh, we're going there. Okay. I didn't expect that, but I am going to go with Dak Prescott.
Yeah, okay. Dak Prescott or Deshaun Watson?
Dak Prescott.
Okay. Dak Prescott or, last one, Tom Brady?
Dak Prescott.
Okay. Yeah, I think Dak Prescott finishes up above most. Okay, here's one. Dak or Russell Wilson?
That's a good one. That is a good one, actually. A piece of me would prefer Russell Wilson, just because it's just something about him that I trust more. And when I watch him play, I know he's the quarterback that's more, in comparison to Dak Prescott, he's more prone to getting in the end zone with his feet versus Dak. But Dak does have a good rushing record, especially last year. But gonna go with Russ on that, but it's a slight edge.
Yeah,
I just like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett as well. But yeah,
I'm going with Dak over that one. Just I like you said, there's a slight edge for Russ. I think there's a slight edge for Dak. I think the same conversation can be made for Dak and Deshaun Watson. Like they're definitely both mobile and usable and the run and passing game. But yeah, that's Dak Prescott, phenomenal talent. If you're drafting Dak Prescott, target him. What do you think of Norris? Maybe 9th round?
Yeah, at highest I would go for Dak is like 8 or 9, but
Yeah.
that's the highest I would go.
Yeah, I think so as well. Anything lower than that, you're getting a pretty good value on Dak. Any of your thoughts on Dak Prescott this year?
I mean, I think that he's going to be great. I think that he will finish. I know he finished second in quarterback fantasy points last year, but he'll definitely be in the top 10 conversation, fantasy-wise and production level from the NFL stats. I think that with the weapons that he has, it's going to be fun to watch. You know, they have Amari Cooper, who is going to, I believe, continue to build on the firm foundation that he established for himself coming into Dallas last year. I mean, obviously, Ezekiel Elliott is there, Michael Gallup. I think CeeDee Lamb is a great option to have at wide receiver. It was fun to watch him, out there in Oklahoma. So I think that Dak is licking his chops right now. I'm sure he's ready to get back on the field and make some noise, because for years and years, Dallas Cowboys and that nation has dealt with listening to people criticizing them on how they can do XYZ during the regular season, but they just can't seem to get it done in the playoffs, let alone make it there. As we all know, Tony Romo had one playoff win in his career.
I
So,
actually watched that one too as a kid. I watched that
r-
one playoff win.
right. So, you know, I think that Dak Prescott will be the quarterback to be able to knock that off. But anytime we talk about the Cowboys, and there is no exemption today, we have to mention Jerry Jones, and he is a key piece to how things are ran. But this year we have Mike McCarthy. I think this is the first time in a long time where we've seen a coach that we can trust, and really take over the team and not be, really steered by Jerry Jones. And I think Mike McCarthy might be one of those guys. And, you have Mike Nolan on defense and whatnot. So it'll be an interesting team to look at, but I do think that Dak Prescott will be in the top 10 conversation, and he's in a good situation as a whole.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Mike McCarthy is no pushover, like we said before, but we can definitely see something completely different in Dallas when it comes to the playoffs this year, if they can make it. I project Dallas finishing 10-6 this year. They have some good matchups, and with their division, um, besides maybe a game against the Giants and the Eagles, I don't see much of a competition between them. I mean, that's one division that's always been like the most competitive division, finishing within one or two wins of one another, or even tying with the same record. But yeah, let's move to Ezekiel Elliott, their running back. I mean, what can't you say about Zeke? He's a monster. He feeds, he eats, he makes those fancy points taste good for everybody. It's something phenomenal if you can have him on your team and another RB2, because he puts up enough numbers for 1 and 2 spots, and it's great to draft him. I know a lot of people. I've been looking at some mock drafts, and they've been drafting him 5th or 6th overall, rather than the 1 or 2 spot like usual. So that's very interesting to me, to see him fall to 5, 6. I've seen him fall to as low as 8, and I've scooped him up. But it's crazy because the talent that's in the league right now. I mean, we know Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, who we'll talk about in a minute, are the overall 1 and 2 in most people's drafts. But then you have Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Michael Thomas even coming into that mix if you're drafting wide receivers. Some people have taken Derrick Henry over Ezekiel Elliott because of last year's performance. So I think Zeke is obviously probably gone, if not gone in the first round. If you're not taking him in the first pick of the second round, you're insane. Like just stop, just stop. But yeah, Zeke, he's there. There's not much that we need to break down, but we have broken down a lot when it comes to our top 10 running backs. You can check out that podcast and video for more detail of Zeke. Anything you want to add when it comes to Ezekiel Elliott?
Yeah, but before I get to that, I just want to, I guess, point out something before it gets pointed out to me. All right. So career-wise, Dak Prescott has 21 rushing touchdowns. Russell Wilson has 19. So, guys, cut me a break. Even though I said what I said, we in the past 4 years, Dak has had 3 straight years with 6 rushing touchdowns, and last year he had 3. So
Get
I
him in
said
the
what I
comments.
said.
Get him in the comments.
I said what I said, but last year Russell Wilson had 3 as well. So I stand by what I said. But to the topic of Ezekiel Elliott, he's a beast. Yeah, there's not much that needs to be added. We can see him have now, even though he hasn't done this yet, I think that he could be a type of player where we see he has 1,300-yard rushing season with 800 yards receiving or something. That might sound crazy, but I think that he's just that type of skill. If he was in the offensive setup the way that Christian McCaffrey is, I think we would see type of system, or not necessarily system, but we would see it play out in the way where it's like, oh, wow, this guy might end up getting 2,000 yard, scrimmage yards. So, yeah, I mean, he's incredible. He gets it done. I wouldn't put Derrick Henry before him in a draft situation, even as a Titans fan and Derrick Henry fan. But Ezekiel Elliott is just a different tier. I would put definitely him higher in tier in comparison to like Derrick Henry.
Right, and it's June now, so we could there's a lot of people playing and just trying to get an idea of where to draft people. So some ADP isn't super reliable, but again, Zeke Elliott should be gone in that first round, undebatable. It would be insane for him not to be. But let's move on to potentially in some leagues another first round draft pick with their wide receiving core, Amari Cooper. And this is the great thing I think about Dallas is it shouldn't be slept on when it comes to their receiving core. We've talked about different receivers in our last podcast, but they have Amari Cooper, they have Michael Gallup, they have CeeDee Lamb. I think it's phenomenal that they have three like potential I feel like these three guys could go to a team and be that wide receiver one. Yet they're all on the same team, and they have the production with Mike McCarthy. We know he loves throwing the ball. But what I'm skeptical about is that all three of them are going to get fantasy value. I think one of them is going to be way more producing than the other two, and the other two are going to get some production in some weeks, you know. So we might see Michael Gallup go off for 25 points in 1 week, but then the next week put up 5. And if we look at how Mike McCarthy ran the offense in Green Bay with Devontae Adams and even Jordy Nelson had all the targets. That's where the plays were written up to go after. And then on some weeks, you'd have these guys like Devontae Adams when he was a rookie coming in and making those big plays, or even when Randall Cobb was in Green Bay coming in making those great plays and becoming a top 10 wide receiver in that week. But you want somebody that can become week in, week out, and I think that can be Amari Cooper. If you check out our wide receiver rankings video and podcast, you can see where I have him ranked and where Norris has him ranked. But I think he's phenomenal this year. I think he has a potential to be in the top 10. I would put my money on it. But then, moving on to Michael Gallup real quick, Michael Gallup is also an extreme talent. We've seen him do really well last year. Michael Gallup had one of the most over 20 plus yard receiving rates. So he's going to get those bombs and he's going to capitalize on them. When it comes to CeeDee Lamb's addition, we're not too sure of what's going to be produced out of that because he's a rookie. So we'll see in the preseason how they use him in the first couple of games. And then even in the regular season, the first week, that's probably going to be the decipher of is CeeDee Lamb going to be somebody keeping as a wide receiver 2 on redraft leagues, or is it worth going to pick up somebody else like potentially even Marvin Jones, who we know has been notable value and left on the waiver wire year in, year out, sadly. But if we look at it, Amari Cooper last year, just to throw out some stats for you guys, Amari Cooper last year, he finished 10th overall in PPR, had 119 targets and 79 receptions. He played all 16 games, which is great to see because we know injuries have hit wide receivers, and he's been hit by injury before. He came into the league questionable, or came into the season last year questionable with, I believe, an Achilles injury. But he had 1,189 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, which is phenomenal as a receiver. And, looking at his touchdown rate, going all the way back to his rookie year, he had 6, 5, 7, 7, and 8 last year. So I think overall he's consistent on that getting to the end zone. He's not somebody like Julio Jones that's going to be week in, week out not getting there, but he'll get there throughout the year very easily. But let me give you guys some Michael Gallup stats real quick just to feed you guys that love those stats. He finished last year 22nd in PPR. He had 112 targets, 66 receptions, and 6 receiving touchdowns. So with Jason Witten gone, Randall Cobb is now in Houston. I mean, there's a lot of targets open for CeeDee Lamb, but I just don't know if CeeDee Lamb is going to come in and take over any of that wide receiver 2 role, or maybe even that wide receiver 3 role, and produce as well as we might want to see. So what are your thoughts on wide receiver core in Dallas this year, Norris?
Yeah, so I honestly I think of uh, the Atlanta Falcons at the when it comes to I guess comparing wide receiving situation because I can see CeeDee Lamb stepping into a Calvin Ridley type of role where he's that open just target for the end zone and whatnot. Not the immediate takeover guy, but we can see. I think we can expect 750 plus yard performance on the year of CeeDee Lamb with about 5 or 6 touchdowns. Um, I think that's a safe like area for him. But with Amari Cooper, he's only in the top 10 last year because of the first 10 weeks of last year. After week 10, he did nothing. He had one touchdown, one receiving touchdown. Um, he had a game in week 12 against the Patriots. I'm not sure what happened there, but it was 0 receptions for 2 targets. Uh, Now I'm not sure if that's a result of Stephon Gilmore or if something else happened there. But just to see the rest of the year play out, he's not someone that I would have, I guess, assumed that he would be like, that super high draft pick or, oh, yeah, he finished top 10. But it is a PPR league that most people play. And I think that he is a good option for sure. Regardless of the stat that I just gave, I think that he's still a solid pick for you to have on your squad. Definitely like a wide receiver 2 type of deal. Um, but with the wide receiver situation there, like I mentioned, I kind of think of the Atlanta Falcons with them because they also had a stacked wide receiving core. And so we can see Amari Cooper have that 1,000-yard season. I think we can expect Michael Gallup. He had 1,000 yards last year. So with Dak Prescott throwing for 4,500 plus yards nearly every year, I think it's a safe assumption that we can see the spread be pretty fair for most of the receivers, including Ezekiel Elliott, who obviously is a dual threat when it comes to running and receiving. So, yeah.
For sure. I think Zeke Elliott coming in and taking some targets that were left off can definitely help his game as well. And I think Dak Prescott and Zeke had that relationship, so I think we could see that happen. Let's talk about Blake Jarwin for a second. Blake Jarwin taking over for Jason Witten as lead tight end. We saw some skill come out of him. I think he's a sleeper pick for this year. He's the last guy that we could talk about with the Dallas Cowboys, but what do you have to say about Blake Jarwin this year? Any opinions for him?
Not too many opinions. I think that he he could be that sleeper type of pick because of the offense that he is a part of right now, and obviously he is the number one tight end on that team. At least we expect him to be that. Still young. I think he had 2 straight years, where he had 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards. So I, I'm not sure what to expect from Jarwin, but again, I think that with him being the new number one at the tight end position, we've seen tight ends flourish in Dallas, even with Dak Prescott. So I think he's in a good position. I don't know. I don't know if you should. I don't think you should draft him by any means. I think that you just leave him where he's at, and then you'll definitely be able to pick him up on your waiver wire. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah, don't overthink drafting him.
yeah. More than likely he'll be dropped, or maybe if you know a guy that likes Blake Jarwin, go pick
Mhm.
him up and trade bait. We can once we break through all these divisions, maybe Norris and I will talk about some trade bait, and then throughout the regular season, we'll be targeting players to trade away and trade for as you guys go through, so you know who you want on your team and who you might want to give away at their value. So, but yeah, that wraps us up for the Dallas Cowboys. Uh, Now, one quick thing to add in: their defense is uh, is phenomenal. It's something like they have a linebacker core with Van Der Esch and great cornerbacks. I think they just got Byron Jones, right? Or the
Mm-mm.
Byron Jones left. So that's something to look at. Maybe their secondary might be a little weaker. But overall, I trust the defensive coach there. And I think overall we could see the Dallas Cowboys do something incredible in their defense. With that, let's